Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to covering the ongoing SJW BS going on at MTV News. Their Decoded series hosted by Francesca Ramsey, well, it's been up to its same old silliness once again. This time, Franny is getting in on the recent revival of talking about privilege. Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also chimed in on this topic this week, basically patting herself on the back for acknowledging her cisgendered privilege. And now, today, MTV is moving on to talking about more privileges based on skin color. Their latest video is called Light-Skinned Privilege. This should be good. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Today, friends, we're talking about the light-skinned elephant in the room and why it keeps getting all of the attention. In the world of pop culture, darker-skinned women have frequently gotten the short end of the success stick.
Let me guess, Franny's mad because she's darker skinned. She's clearly being petty and jealous and making this all about her again. Ever notice how every video she makes has an angle that benefits her specifically? Whether it's favoring women over men or minorities over whites or, in this case, darker skinned blacks over the light ones. No matter what this show is talking about, it all comes back to a way that makes Francesca more of a victim than everyone else. I mean, look at this picture on the screen right now. Franny bears a pretty striking resemblance to that black chick in this scene's graphic. Both are dark-skinned, wearing red shirts, and they're making stupid faces with their eyebrows crooked too. So yeah, it's pretty obvious these dark-skinned people Franny's getting ready to defend here with this bad SJW logic, well, she's basically defending herself. This is all about Franny being jealous that light-skinned blacks are better looking and more successful than her.
Just consider the most successful black female singers in the last decade. You can probably come up with dozens of names, including Alicia Keys, Sierra, Mariah Carey, Janine Aiko, and of course, Beyonce. But can you name even 5 deeply melanated female pop stars?
Well, if you narrow down any field like that, sure. It's going to be hard to name 5 people in that group that fast. We're not just talking about dark-skinned black people. Franny is also looking for dark-skinned black female pop singers. Not actors or models or athletes. Has to be black female pop singers. Oh, and they have to be in America too, which of course is only 13% black. That's a pretty small percent, which gets cut in half as well when Franny narrows it down to just women. So out of the 7% of this country that are black women, how many pop singers can you name? Well, I honestly can't name anyone besides the ones Franny already mentioned. Beyonce, Alicia Keys, Rihanna, and stuff like that. I might add some classics in there though while we're at it, like Whitney Houston or Aretha Franklin. 2 of the greatest singers of all time, I might add, regardless of their gender or their race. But this brings up another limitation to Franny's inquiry. Seems she's asking for current pop stars here too. So it's no wonder it's hard to name anyone besides who she's already said, because it's such a ridiculously narrow field to draw from. Yet, Franny is pretending it should be some kind of big number. I don't know why she thinks 7% of the population should make up more than that in pop singers, but that's what's brought us here today. And frankly, I think it's silly and unnecessary what she's doing here. It's basically the same kind of thing MTV did a few weeks back, when they talked about Asian erasure in Hollywood. There, they wanted more of a small minority to appear in American movies. And now they want a different small minority of women to appear in music and movies and songs. Same shit, different smell, really. They want some kind of forced diversity, clearly. Asian and black quotas in entertainment, which is an absolutely absurd suggestion. Before we continue here though, let's address the light-skinned part of this video. Franny also complains that there's more light-skinned blacks getting attention and fame, but I'm not sure she even cared to figure out why. Franny just wants to move on and complain about white people being the problem here, but I have to say first, there are some pretty obvious reasons light-skinned or mixed-race blacks get more famous like this. First of all, they're clearly talented, and they're doing a great job, so let's not take that away from them. And then secondly, blacks mixing with the larger white population in America makes total sense too. They've been living alongside us for generations, so it's only a matter of time before the groups intermix. And also, if you think about it, the odds that a black woman dates a non-black man are much higher, since black men only make up about 13% of the men in America. Finally, let's address the one last elephant in the room. It's going to sound harsh and maybe offensive to say this, but light-skinned blacks just look more attractive most of the time. At least more attractive and appealing to the American eye. If you can find more dark-skinned blacks that are more sexy and photogenic, then by all means, bring them to Hollywood and New York and have them audition. But for now, in our world, light-skinned ladies and gents are just more appealing. They have the features that are more attractive to the eye, and it's what the American audiences want to see on their TV, movies, and music. Nothing wrong with that either. Franny would probably call this racist, but really, this is just sexual preferences playing out in entertainment. Since sex appeal, lust, and attraction do play such a large role in the media most people consume. Makes sense and nothing to see here, but I'm sure Franny is about to come back at us with some stupid claims. Let's get back to her video and see what she says then.
Lighter-skinned and often mixed-race women have usually broken through society's biggest barriers first. Now, this isn't to say they weren't hardworking or didn't deserve it, but black people with lighter skin, straighter hair, and more Eurocentric features have always been more likely to be given the paltry number of opportunities to access white spaces and institutions.
Congratulations, you noticed a trend. But just because mixed-race people are getting more awards and better roles in movies doesn't mean there's a problem here. This isn't because of racism. It's really one of two things. It's either because light-skinned blacks are in general more attractive to Americans, like I mentioned before, or they could also be more talented and better skilled actors, singers, and entertainers. Take your pick of those two, because I will not accept reason number 3, which is what Franny's implying, saying everyone in America is racist or something. That's an unprovable assumption Franny wants us to make with her here, but it's just not true. If you have real proof of people being racist, then by all means, let's hear the stories and see the evidence. But if you want us just to take your word for it because you notice a trend here, then I say you should stop. You're being butthurt here, Franny, because there's not as many people that you like in the movies in America, and that's bullshit. It's a lame, self-centered, childish way of thinking, and it needs to stop.
The roots of this light versus dark inequality stem all the way back to the days of slavery, when lighter-skinned slaves, often the mixed children of white slave owners, aka the product of rape, aka you're not slick Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop you right there. I try to let this insane shill go as long as possible, but once she starts accusing one of our founding fathers of sexual assault, that's where I draw the line. Also, nice job bringing slavery up in the first minute or so of your video. Not sure what a long-gone institution like that has to do with pop singers in 2019 though. In truth, almost all of Franny's MTV decoded videos bring up slavery at some point or another. One of her not-so-secret goals is to shit on white people, of course, so this seems to be Francesca's way of going about it. One problem with this angle though is that everyone in the past had slaves at some point. Slavery wasn't exclusive to white Americans in the 1700s by any means. Those African American slaves were brought in from Africa, where the blacks had been enslaving themselves for generations. They sold their own kind off into slave trades too, including the ones that brought black people to North and South America. And sure, it was a real shitty way to get here, but let's also be real for a minute. Modern day African Americans like Francesca, they are much better off here than if they stayed in Africa. That whole continent is still a shithole, and they still war with each other and have unstable societies all over the place. Regardless, there is some accidental truth in what Franny was saying here too. She talks about the slaves who started to reproduce with the whites in America. She says it was unwanted coupling, and I don't doubt there was some of that going on either. But there was also romantic wanted sex happening between the blacks and whites as well, just like how it happens to this day. And this is what most historians would claim happened between Jefferson and his black mistress. The original story was they had a secret love affair. It was romantic and wanted affection. But now, hundreds of years later, and social justice warriors like Francesca Ramsey, they like to say it was unwanted sex and wrong and evil because they're biased against whites in the present. So you can believe what side of that story you want, but I think it's pretty clear Franny has a bias here.
Now, while the skin tone hierarchy known as colorism is a byproduct of white supremacy, it's not just a white thing. Stereotypical figures like the angry black woman and sassy black friend are unfortunately also present in black-made media.
So the blacks stereotype themselves in their media. I think we all knew that already. If you've ever seen a Kevin Hart movie or a Tyler Perry one, you would know for sure that blacks have a sense of humor about themselves. Some can take a joke, but others, like Franny, they see these stereotypes as powerful beings that take her and other dark-skinned women down and make them not be able to succeed. But really, it sounds to me like Francesca just needs some more self-reflection here. Maybe you're not as popular and you're not getting as much acting work because you're just not that good. Or dare I say, you're not pretty enough, Franny. No shame in that either. It happens, but I do hate seeing SJWs like her who are failing turn and blame it on white people and racism and slavery and everything else. Francesca, let's be real here. Your show is failing because you're terrible and not funny, and you're pushing liberal SJW talking points that make no sense. It has nothing to do with your looks or your skin color, really. Well, it doesn't on our end, the people who are watching these videos. We, the people, are watching your videos and seeing that they're bad and cringy and coming from a defeated, weak, sad loser who blames her own problems on everyone else. You are the reason this decoded series is doing terribly, Franny. It's not because everyone else is racist and against you, and you're also the reason your Comedy Central show never got picked up after you filmed that pilot years ago. It's because you talk like a cartoon character and your jokes are terrible, not to mention your points are wrong and misguided at best, and misleading and dishonest at worst. So really, you're the reason this is all happening to you, Franny, not the rest of us. I say just get over it and move on with your life, and stop whining on the internet.
The popular 90s sitcom Martin, as brilliant as it was, is a shining example of this problem. Light-skinned, Franny's Gina was positioned as attractive, intelligent, and funny versus her dark-skinned friend Pam, who despite being bangin', was often coded as unattractive and the butt of many of Martin's jokes.
Wow, I was just thinking of the show Martin earlier too, when I was talking about Kevin Hart and Tyler Perry. I too used to watch Martin back in the day, and it was great. It was a funny, black-centered comedy show. But let's not pretend this chick on the right in this photo, let's not pretend she's hotter than the other one. Clearly the light-skinned chick is way hotter. Franny just wants us to pretend they are equal so she could claim others are racist when they say the light-skinned one's hotter. Really, once again, Franny is being the real racist here. She's lashing out at whites and light-skinned blacks because she's butthurt that other dark-skinned women like her aren't getting as famous. And here's a good way to rebut that pretty quickly. Skin tone doesn't care about your talent. Franny is suggesting that these lighter-skinned performers are doing better because of racism, but I say it's because of their talent and likability. These performers earned the right to be on screen and in film and music, and they did it by being the best they can in their fields, not because they are one color skin or the other. If that's the way Franny really thinks the world works, then she really is that far gone. It's like she thinks whites and light-skinned people just get handed everything. We don't. In fact, if anyone's getting freebies and handouts, it's you, Francesca. Your whole Decoded series is still around because you're a diversity hire for MTV and something they want to keep around to fill their SJW quotas. This is why you continue to fail outside of this. Your show never got picked up, as I mentioned, and I also heard your book didn't sell for shit either. Not to mention your podcast is pretty unwatchable. So all in all, you're just shitty at what you do, and that's why you're failing. But rather than admit that harsh truth, Franny opts to blame her problems on everyone else once again. And I'm really getting sick of it, so that's really all I have to say here.
Remember that time Kanye West held a Yeezy casting asking for multiracial women only? Or when the casting call for the movie Straight Outta Compton described A girls as the hottest of the hottest with real hair, and D girls as, and I quote, African American girls, poor, not in good shape, medium to dark skin tone. Yikes, it be your own people.
Well, they were casting parts for a movie that was based on a true story. So if that's the girls they wanted to play these groupies, then I hate to break it to you, but that means the rap group NWA preferred hot chicks with real hair over black chicks with wigs and weaves. Also, as Franny mentioned, this is black people doing this to themselves. The Straight Outta Compton movie was made by and starring all blacks. The cast, director, producers, and writers and everything. So really, this brings me to my biggest and final point here. Like Franny said herself, it's black people who are doing this to themselves now. Ignore all that backtracking to slavery from hundreds of years ago before. That was just Franny trying to pin this on whites when really, it's the African Americans who judge each other the most, based on their light or dark skin. Modern whites and browns could care less about this. So I say at the end of the day, if you want this problem to go away, you gotta check in with your own people, Franny. There's no privilege here either. So as much as you would like to pin this all on whites, once again, it's really the blacks themselves who are obsessed with this light skin, dark skin stuff. Franny in particular is actually playing into it as much as her fellow blacks. Think about it. She made a whole video complaining about light-skinned people, which was most likely rooted in selfish, personal reasons. So, in the end, nice try bringing slavery into this, but I think it's pretty clear that that's not the actual case at all. Something that happened 200 years ago hardly affects modern blacks as much as their current friends, families, and relatives who are living with them today. What do you guys think? Is slavery the reason light-skinned blacks are more talented singers and actors? Or do you think they just happen to be more skilled and entertaining and attractive? And what do you think about Franny's personal stake in this issue? Is it clouding her judgment of the facts? Comment your thoughts and everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit like if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.